I was standing in the rain outside my stepfamily's wedding, mascara running down my face, when a man in a $1,000 suit appeared beside me. "Pretend you're with me," he whispered. I had no idea that saying yes would change everything. This is my story. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own home or wondered if one moment could change your entire life, you need to hear this. Stay until the end, because what happens next will leave you speechless. And if this story touches your heart, please like and subscribe. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Addison, and I need to tell you about the night that changed everything. But first, you need to understand how I got there. I was 10 years old when my mother died. Cancer took her in 6 months, and with her went every ounce of warmth in our home. My father, broken and lost, stumbled through the next 2 years like a ghost. Then he met Eleanor. Beautiful, charming, sophisticated Eleanor. She swept into our lives with her perfectly styled hair and her daughter Claire, who was exactly my age. I remember thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd have a sister. Maybe I'd have a family again. I was so wrong. 15 years. That's how long I lived as a stranger in my own house. Eleanor made it clear from day one that I was my father's responsibility, not hers. Claire got the master bedroom upstairs. I got the small room in the basement. Claire got brand new clothes for every season. I got hand-me-downs from Eleanor's nieces. When Claire wanted piano lessons, she got a baby grand delivered to our living room. When I asked for art classes, my father said we needed to be practical about expenses, but I told myself it was fine. I told myself that if I just worked hard enough, proved myself enough, they'd eventually see me. They'd eventually love me like they loved Claire. God, I was naive. The wedding invitation came on a Tuesday. Claire was marrying Brandon, some finance guy from her company. The invitation was cream-colored with gold lettering, expensive and elegant, just like everything Claire touched. There was a handwritten note inside. "Addison, I want you as a bridesmaid. It would mean the world to have my sister by my side. My sister." She called me her sister. I cried when I read it. Actual tears of joy, because finally, after 15 years, maybe Claire actually saw me as family. I worked double shifts at both my jobs for 3 months to save up for a bridesmaid dress. While Claire's dress was being custom-made by some designer in New York, I scoured every discount store in town. I found a beautiful cream-colored dress on sale, simple but elegant. It cost me every penny I'd saved, but I didn't care. This was my chance to finally belong. The wedding day arrived, and I showed up at the venue with my heart full of hope. The venue was stunning, some historic mansion with gardens and chandeliers and more flowers than I'd ever seen in my life. I walked in wearing my cream dress, and the first person I saw was Eleanor. She looked at me like I'd just tracked mud across her white carpet. "Addison," she said, her voice dripping with disapproval, "that's what you chose to wear? Couldn't you have tried harder? This is Claire's special day." My father stood right beside her. He looked at me, looked at Eleanor, and said nothing. Not one word in my defense. Story of my life. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked further into the venue. Claire's relatives were everywhere, and I heard the whispers as I passed. "That's the other daughter. The one from the first marriage. Poor thing, she doesn't quite fit in, does she?" I found a seat in the back and tried to make myself invisible. That's when Claire floated over in her gorgeous white gown, surrounded by her actual bridesmaids. 6 of them, all in matching lavender dresses. My stomach dropped. "Addison," Claire said brightly as if nothing was wrong, "I'm so glad you could make it." "Claire," I managed to say, "your note? You said you wanted me as a bridesmaid?" Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, that? Well, I realized the photos would look better with an even number of bridesmaids, and we already had 6. You understand, right? It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. 15 years of nothing personal." Eleanor appeared beside her daughter, placing a protective hand on Claire's shoulder. "Besides," she announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear, "some people just don't fit the aesthetic we were going for." Claire's bridesmaids needed to match, and, well, she gestured at my dress with a dismissive wave. The nearby guests laughed. Actually laughed. I felt my face burning with humiliation, but I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. "I should get back to my guests," Claire said, already turning away. "Thanks for coming, Addison." I sat there for the next hour, watching Claire pose for photos with her bridesmaids, watching my father walk her down the aisle without a glance in my direction, watching Eleanor dab at tears of joy that she never shed for me. I was invisible. I'd always been invisible. The reception started, and I stayed in my corner, picking at the food I couldn't taste. I just wanted the night to end. I just wanted to go home and forget this ever happened. Then it got worse. I was standing near the dessert table trying to hold back tears when I felt it, a sharp, deliberate push from behind. I stumbled forward, my hands reaching out to catch myself, and I crashed straight into the wedding cake table. The 5-tier masterpiece that probably cost more than my car tilted, swayed, and then came crashing down. Buttercream, fondant, sugar flowers, everything exploded across the floor and all over me. The entire reception fell silent. 200 people staring at me, covered in white frosting and cake crumbs. Then Claire screamed, "You ruined my wedding! You ruined everything!" Eleanor rushed over, her face twisted with rage. "I knew we shouldn't have invited her. I told you, Claire. I told you she'd cause problems." I tried to speak, tried to explain that someone pushed me, but the words wouldn't come. I looked around desperately for my father, and there he was, standing 10 feet away, his face pale. "Dad," I whispered, "someone pushed me." "I didn't." "Addison," he said quietly, "just leave. Please. Just go." Those words broke something in me. Not anger, not sadness, just a deep, hollow emptiness. My own father choosing them over me one final time. Security appeared on either side of me. Eleanor must have called them. They took my arms gently but firmly and started walking me toward the exit. Every single guest watched as I was escorted out, covered in cake, mascara starting to run. I heard the whispers, saw the phones pointed at me to capture my humiliation. The last thing I heard before the doors closed was Claire's cousin laughing and saying something to her friends. I couldn't make out the words, but the cruelty in her voice was unmistakable. They left me outside in the front circle of the venue. It had started to rain. Of course it had. Light drops at first, then heavier, mixing with the frosting on my dress, making everything run together into a sticky, horrible mess. I sat down on the curb because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. 15 years. 15 years of hoping, trying, working to earn their love. And this is how it ended, thrown out like garbage while they celebrated inside. I don't know how long I sat there crying. Long enough for the rain to wash most of the cake away, long enough for my phone to die from the water, long enough to seriously consider never speaking to any of them again. That's when I heard the car. It was expensive. I could tell by the sound of the engine. Some kind of luxury vehicle, silver and sleek, pulling up right in front of me. The door opened and a man stepped out, early 30s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that actually looked concerned. He stood there for a moment, holding an umbrella, just looking at me. Then he walked over and held the umbrella over both of us. "I saw what happened," he said. His voice was calm, steady. "Through the window." I couldn't even look at him. Great. Another witness to my humiliation. "That push wasn't an accident," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "I saw everything. I was standing near the bar and I watched that girl deliberately shove you from behind." My head snapped up. You saw?" He nodded, then offered me a handkerchief from his pocket. Actual cloth, monogrammed. Who carries those anymore? "My name is Julian. Julian Cross. I'm a guest of Brandon's business partner, and I've been watching your family treat you like a ghost all evening." Something about the way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so certain, made me believe him. "They're not my family," I said bitterly. "Not really." "I know," Julian said. He sat down on the curb next to me, apparently not caring about his expensive suit. "I was seated at the table behind yours during dinner. I heard every comment your stepmother made, every comparison to your stepsister, every subtle dig that everyone else pretended not to notice. I stared at him. Why would you pay attention to that? His jaw tightened. Because I've seen it before. Because someone I loved went through something similar and I wasn't there to help her. And she. He paused, taking a breath. She didn't make it. The rain fell harder, but neither of us moved. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be, he said. Just don't let them make you feel worthless, because that's what they're doing in there. They're celebrating while you're out here broken, and they think they've won. Haven't they? I asked. I mean, look at me. Covered in cake, thrown out of my own stepsister's wedding, my father couldn't even defend me. Want to walk back in there with me? Julian interrupted. I blinked. What? He stood up, brushing off his pants, and extended his hand to me. I said, do you want to walk back in there with me? Pretend you're with me. Let's give them something to talk about. I'm covered in cake, I said stupidly. I can fix that. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Question is, Addison, are you brave enough? I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the emptiness inside that had nothing left to lose. Maybe it was the way he said my name, like I was actually a person worth knowing. Maybe it was just rage finally bubbling up after 15 years of swallowing it down. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I am. Julian smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. Good. My assistant will be here in 10 minutes. Trust me? I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet. I don't even know you. Sometimes strangers are the only ones who can see us clearly, he said. 10 minutes later, a woman in her 20s pulled up in another car. She opened the trunk and pulled out a garment bag, a makeup case, and what looked like a professional hairstyling kit. Julian had made one phone call, and suddenly I had a whole glam team. Mr. Cross keeps emergency formal wear for charity events, the assistant explained, unzipping the garment bag. Inside was the most beautiful dress I'd ever seen, a silver gown that shimmered even in the dim light. This should fit. And don't worry, I'm a makeup artist on weekends. We'll have you looking incredible in 20 minutes. I changed in Julian's car while the assistant worked magic on my hair and face. The silver gown fit perfectly, hugging curves I didn't know I had, and flowing to the floor in elegant waves. The makeup artist covered any trace of tears and frosting, giving me dramatic eyes and a bold lip. A hairstylist appeared from somewhere and pinned my hair into an elegant updo. When I looked in the car mirror, I didn't recognize myself. I looked expensive. I looked confident. I looked like someone who belonged. Ready? Julian asked, offering his arm. My heart was pounding. What if they kick me out again? They won't, he said with certainty. Brandon's been trying to get me to invest in his company for 6 months. They'll smile and pretend they're thrilled to see you. Trust me. We walked back toward the venue entrance. Julian's hand rested lightly on my lower back, guiding me forward. The doorman's eyes widened when he saw us, but he opened the door immediately. The moment we stepped inside, I swear the music faltered. Every head in the room turned toward us. I saw Eleanor's wine glass freeze halfway to her lips. I saw Claire's bouquet almost slip from her hands. I saw my father's eyes go wide with shock. And Julian just smiled, kept his hand on my back, and walked me straight into the center of the reception like we owned the place. Brandon's father, apparently Julian's business contact, rushed over immediately. Julian! You made it! We're so honored you could join us. Wouldn't miss it, Julian said smoothly. And this is Addison, my companion for the evening. The way he said companion made it sound important, exclusive. Brandon's father immediately shook my hand with enthusiasm. Wonderful to meet you, Addison. Any friend of Julian's is a friend of ours. I watched the realization dawn across the room. People started whispering, different whispers this time. Who is she? She's with Julian Cross? The investor? The one worth millions? Eleanor appeared at my side so fast I almost jumped. Her whole demeanor had changed. Addison, darling. She actually called me darling. There you are. We were so worried when you left. I looked at her fake smile and desperate eyes. "Were you?" I asked quietly. "I don't remember anyone looking worried when your daughter's security threw me out." Her smile tightened. "Oh, that was just a misunderstanding. You know how weddings are, so much stress and chaos. Claire was just upset about the cake, but she's over it now." Before I could respond, Claire herself appeared, practically pushing her new husband aside to get to me. "Addison! Sister!" She actually tried to hug me. "I'm so glad you came back. I was just telling Brandon how much I missed you." I stepped back, putting distance between us. Julian's hand stayed steady on my back, grounding me. "Was that before or after you called me a problem?" I asked. "Or was it after Dad told me to leave?" Claire's smile flickered. She glanced at Julian, clearly trying to gauge how much he knew. "That was all just heat-of-the-moment stuff. You know I love you. Do I?" The words came out colder than I intended, but I didn't take them back. The tension was broken by the band starting a new song. Julian turned to me with a slight bow. "Would you like to dance?" I'd never been asked to dance at a formal event before. Never been to prom because I was working. Never been to a school dance because I couldn't afford the tickets. But I put my hand in his and let him lead me to the dance floor. His hand settled on my waist, mine on his shoulder. We started moving, and surprisingly, my body seemed to know what to do. "You're doing great," he whispered, "and they're all watching." "I can feel it," I admitted. "It's terrifying." "Channel it," he said. "Use it. Let them see you're not their victim anymore." We danced, and somewhere between the first verse and the chorus, something shifted. I stopped thinking about my step-family. I stopped thinking about the humiliation and the years of pain. I just danced with this stranger who'd shown me more kindness in an hour than my family had in 15 years. Julian made me laugh, actually laugh, telling me about the ridiculous conversations he'd overheard at the bar. "Your stepmother told someone you were Claire's charity case," he said, "and then she ordered a $50 cocktail on your father's tab." "That sounds about right," I said, and somehow the absurdity of it made me laugh instead of cry. My father approached during a break between songs. He looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting between me and Julian. "Addison, could we talk? Please? I think there's been a misunderstanding about tonight." Julian spoke before I could. His voice was polite, but firm. "Sir, I think Addison has had enough misunderstandings for one evening. Perhaps give her some space." My father's face flushed. "And who exactly are you to speak for my daughter?" "Someone who actually sees her worth," Julian replied simply. My father opened his mouth, closed it, then walked away without another word. I wanted to feel victorious, but mostly I just felt sad. Even now, even with a wealthy, important man defending me, my father couldn't do it himself. We stepped outside onto a balcony for fresh air. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and glittering. I leaned against the railing, suddenly exhausted. "Thank you," I said, "for all of this. You didn't have to—" "I did," Julian interrupted. "I absolutely did." He was quiet for a moment, staring out at the gardens. "I had a sister. Younger sister, Sophie. Our father remarried when she was 12, and our stepmother. She was a lot like your Eleanor." My heart clenched. What happened? Sophie felt invisible, worthless. Our stepmother had her own daughter, and Sophie was just in the way. I was away at college, building my business, too focused on success to notice what was happening at home. His voice cracked slightly. "She called me the night before, said she needed to talk. I told her I was busy. I'd call her back the next day. Julian. She took her own life that night, 19 years old, and she couldn't see any reason to keep going." He turned to look at me, and his eyes were wet. "When I saw you tonight, sitting on that curb in the rain, covered in cake and broken, I saw Sophie, and I thought, not again. I can't let it happen again. I didn't think. I just reached out and hugged him, this stranger who'd saved me, who was carrying his own unbearable pain. We stood there for a long moment, two people who understood what it meant to be invisible. "I'm so sorry about Sophie," I whispered. "I'm sorry about your 15 years," he replied. "No one should have to earn love from family. It should just be there." I pulled back, wiping my eyes carefully so I wouldn't ruin the makeup. "Can I tell you something? Something I've never admitted to anyone? Anything. I don't even know why I came today," I said. I knew it would hurt. I knew they'd find some way to make me feel small, but some stupid part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, Claire meant it when she called me her sister. That maybe this would be the day they finally saw me as family. "That's not stupid," Julian said. "That's human. We all want to belong, especially with the people who are supposed to love us." "But they don't," I said. The truth of it settled over me like a weight. They never did. And they never will. I've been chasing something that doesn't exist. "Then stop chasing," he said simply. "Start choosing yourself." Before I could respond, Julian's assistant appeared at the balcony door. Her face was serious. "Mr. Cross, you need to hear this." She held up her phone and pressed play on a video. The audio was muffled but clear enough. It was Claire's cousin, the one who'd pushed me, talking to her friends. She was drunk, her words slurring together. Funniest thing ever. Claire actually paid me $200 to push her. Wanted the freak gone. Should have seen her face when the cake went down. My blood ran cold. Claire had planned it. She'd actually paid someone to humiliate me. Julian's jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" "She was bragging about it near the bar," his assistant said. "I recorded it just in case." "In case of what?" I asked. Julian looked at me, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. "In case you wanted to make a choice, Addison. We can walk away right now, leave them to their celebration, and you never have to see them again. Or, ... quote. He held up the phone. "We can show them that actions have consequences." My mind raced. Part of me wanted to run, to disappear and never look back. But another part, the part that had been silent and swallowed for 15 years, wanted to be heard. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. It was time for the toasts. The best man had just finished his speech when Julian stood up, champagne glass in hand. The room quieted immediately. Apparently, when someone worth millions wants to speak, people listen. "I'd like to say a few words," Julian announced, his voice carrying across the reception, "about truth, and family, and the things we think we can hide." Eleanor's face went pale. My father looked confused. Claire was smiling, probably thinking Julian was about to praise her. "I've learned something important tonight," Julian continued. "I've learned that sometimes the people who claim to love us are the ones who hurt us most. And sometimes those same people are foolish enough to brag about it." He pulled out his phone. "I think everyone should hear this." He pressed play, and the cousin's drunken confession filled the room through the sound system. "Claire actually paid me $200 to push her, wanted the freak gone, should have seen her face when the cake went down." The reaction was instantaneous. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I watched Claire's face go from confusion to horror to pure rage in seconds. Eleanor clutched her chest like she might faint. Brandon stared at his new wife like he'd never seen her before. "That's not," Claire started, but Julian wasn't done. "For those who might have missed it," he said calmly, "the bride paid someone to physically assault her stepsister and destroy her own wedding cake, all to publicly humiliate someone whose only crime was showing up when invited." Claire's face crumpled. But instead of apologizing, instead of showing any remorse, she screamed, "It was supposed to be my day! Mine!" But no, Addison always has to make it about her. Poor Addison, poor little orphan Addison with her dead mother. Everyone always feels sorry for her. The room went completely silent. Even Eleanor looked shocked. "I worked for everything," Claire continued, tears streaming down her face. "Everything I have I earned. But Addison gets to play the victim, gets sympathy for something that happened 15 years ago. This was supposed to be the one day where I mattered more." "Claire, stop," Eleanor hissed, but her daughter was beyond listening. No, I'm tired of pretending, tired of acting like we're sisters when everyone knows she doesn't belong in this family. She never did. Brandon took a step back from his wife, his face pale. Claire, what are you saying? But I wasn't listening anymore, because for the first time in 15 years, I wasn't angry or hurt or desperately trying to understand why they hated me. I just felt free. Free from the hope that had chained me to these people. Free from the need for their approval. A microphone was handed to me. Everyone waited, probably expecting me to yell or cry or match Claire's rage. Instead, I took a breath and spoke clearly. I forgive you, Claire. The words surprised even me. I forgive you for tonight, for the bridesmaid lie, for the 15 years of making me feel invisible. I forgive you, because holding on to this anger would only hurt me more. I turned to look at my father, who was standing frozen by Eleanor's side. And Dad? You chose them 15 years ago. Every day since then you've chosen them, so now I'm making a choice too. I'm choosing me. I set the microphone down and walked toward the exit. Julian fell into step beside me, his hand finding mine. Behind us, I heard chaos erupting, Claire sobbing, Eleanor trying to do damage control, guests whispering furiously. But I didn't look back. My father's voice called out, Addison, wait, please. I paused at the door just for a moment, but I didn't turn around. I just kept walking. Julian drove me home in his silver car, the city lights blurring past the windows. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. When we pulled up to my apartment building, a modest place in a not-so-great neighborhood, he walked me to my door. That was incredibly brave, he said. That was incredibly terrifying, I corrected, and he laughed. Both can be true. He pulled out a business card and handed it to me. This has my personal number, not my business line, my actual cell phone. I meant what I said, Addison. I'd like to see you again. For real, not pretend. I looked at the card, then at him. Why? You've seen me at my absolute worst. You've seen my disaster of a family. Why would you want to see me again? Because worst moments show us who people really are, he said simply. And you, at your worst, showed grace and strength and the courage to choose yourself. That's someone I want to know better. For the first time all night, I smiled without any pain behind it. Coffee? A real date? I'd love that, he said. Then gently, he leaned in and kissed my cheek. I'll call you tomorrow. And Addison, you deserve good things. Please start believing that. He left, and I stood there for a long moment, his words settling into the spaces that had been empty for so long. 6 months later, my life looked completely different. Julian had invested in my small online business idea, handmade jewelry that I'd been making in my spare time. With his mentorship and capital, it had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I had my own studio, employees, and orders coming in from across the country. Julian and I were dating, really dating. Not the pretend kind from that night, but the kind where he knew my coffee order and I knew his favorite books. The kind where we talked until 3 a.m. about everything and nothing. The kind where I was learning what healthy love actually looked like. I was in therapy, working through 15 years of trauma and neglect. Learning that I wasn't unlovable, I'd just been loving people who couldn't love me back. Learning that family wasn't always blood, and sometimes the people who see you best are the ones you least expect. I hadn't spoken to Eleanor or Claire since the wedding. My father had tried calling, texting, even showing up at my apartment once. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. And I was learning to be okay with that. Julian's circle of friends had become my family, people who invited me to dinner parties and remembered my birthday and asked how I was doing because they actually cared about the answer. I'd found my people, and none of them shared my blood. The doorbell rang one evening as I was closing up the studio. I opened it to find Julian standing there with takeout bags and that smile I'd grown to love. Thought you might be hungry, he said. Starving, I admitted, letting him in. We sat on the floor of my studio, eating Thai food straight from the containers, and I told him about my day. A major boutique wanted to carry my jewelry line. My assistant had come up with an incredible new design, small victories that felt enormous. "I'm proud of you," Julian said, and the simple words made my chest warm. "I'm proud of me too," I said, and realized I meant it. 6 months ago, I was sitting on a curb in the rain thinking my life was over. Now you're building the life you deserve," he finished. I leaned against him, his arm coming around my shoulders automatically. You know what's crazy? That night was the worst and best night of my life. The worst because it finally broke me, but the best because... Because? He prompted. Because it broke me open enough to let something new in. Let you in. Let myself in. I looked up at him. If Claire hadn't paid that girl to push me, if I hadn't crashed into that cake, if you hadn't walked outside at that exact moment... But I did, he said softly, and you said yes when I asked you to trust me. You were brave enough to walk back in there, brave enough to hear the truth about Claire, and brave enough to walk away from people who didn't deserve you. We saved each other, I said. You saw Sophie in me, and I saw your pain. We both needed that night, didn't we? Yeah, he agreed. We did. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it and sighed. It was my father, his third message this week. Addison, please, let me explain. Let me make things right. You're my daughter. Julian read it over my shoulder. What do you want to do? I thought about it, really thought about it. A few months ago, I would have jumped at any crumb of attention from him. Now? Now I knew better. Nothing, I said, setting the phone down. I don't owe him my forgiveness or my time. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear him out, but that day isn't today. And that's okay, Julian said. It really is, I agreed, and the freedom of that truth settled over me like a warm blanket. We finished our food, talking about plans for next week and a trip we were thinking about taking. Normal couple things, things I never thought I'd have. And when Julian left that night with a kiss and a promise to call tomorrow, I stood in my studio, and looked at everything I'd built. I'd spent 15 years trying to be enough for people who would never see me, and in one night a stranger had shown me that I was already enough, that I'd always been enough. The girl who got pushed into a wedding cake was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who knew her worth, someone who'd chosen herself and found that she was worth choosing. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best transformations. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes losing everything means you're finally free to build something real. And sometimes the best revenge is just living well. So that's my story. The night my stepsister paid someone to push me into her wedding cake became the night I found my worth, and someone who actually saw me. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best transformations. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories like this. And remember, family isn't always blood. Sometimes strangers become your greatest allies, and the people who should love you show their true colors. You deserve people who choose you, who see you, who celebrate you. Don't settle for less. Thanks for listening to my story. I'll see you in the next one.